Oh, there we go. That looks like it. Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is the Housing Advisory Committee for Monday, April 25th. We can look at the agenda. So approval of the agenda, introduction of late items. There was, I sent the final draft of the report very late last night, so that will be an introduction. Does anybody else have anything about the agenda they want to change or introduce?
No, it's great.
No. Okay. So somebody to move. Thanks, Maureen. Fritz can second. All in favor? Yes. Okay. So we've got the agenda approved. Adoption of the minutes. Hopefully everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from our last meeting for March 20. Is it March 28th? Yes. Sorry, I'm mixing up my months. Anybody, any questions or comments on those minutes? Nope. Hearing none. Okay. Somebody to move. Fritz, that sounds. Oh, Ron's moved and Fritz. Michael seconded. Perfect. Everybody in favor. Oh, and Steph, I was just thinking, do you want to change Ron's name just for the record?
So I changed Ron's name.
he's as it appears on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Okay, adoption of minutes done. Public comments. Steph, do we have anybody for public comments? Nope. Okay, moving right along. So business arising from the minutes. So the housing targets report. We've got recommendation council. So I would hope by the end of today's meeting, we can actually have that finalized and off and recommend to council, and Daniel can take that up to them. We've got 30 minutes allocated for that. I think that's plenty. And then after that, we can look at what we've got next on our work plan, which is the cluster and duplex zoning. And then we wanted to talk briefly about the developer delegation series and kind of how we're going to move that forward. So yeah, it should be hopefully an efficient, quick meeting today, but hopefully with good outcome. So with that said, why don't shall I share my screen with the housing targets report? Okay, desktop. Oh, wait, pick the right screen here. I think that's the right one. Yeah, everyone can see that. Yeah. Okay, great. So I'll sort of make it as big as, let me know, because I know some people are in varying screen sizes, so I'll sort of enlarge that. Okay, so this is the content is generally very similar to the report that you saw last month. I highlighted all the changes. Actually, that shouldn't be red. I highlighted all the changes in red. Some of them were just minor. Some of it was basically just formatting and shuffling things around in various orders. So I'll just go through it and just shout out if you want me to stop, and we can discuss things. And then when we actually get to the recommendations, I think that's where we'll probably get into the nitty-gritty of the discussion. So the background, I pretty much left that. I just renamed it backgrounds. I think that's, again, happy for either now in the meeting or later on, Daniel and staff, if you want to rename things and reformat things, that's fine. So I just sort of titled it background and gave Ron's method, which I think was great. Titled this housing targets. So looking, yes.
Could we go back off of that?
Yes, absolutely.
I wanna object to something.
Okay.
In the method section. The sentence that says the shortcoming of this report is that it cannot take into account political will.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so two suggestions. One is to cut it from that paragraph and make that sentence a standalone paragraph following the first paragraph in method.
Okay.
To give it more emphasis. But as well as giving it more emphasis, I think that we really do need to give more emphasis right at the get-go to the economic conditions around housing. So a shortcoming of the report is not only that it can't take into account political will, but it can't take into account the economic feasibility of some of these recommendations or whatever. So you've got both things going on. And I think when you mention both, it's a more even-handed statement, because I could see some members of council not feeling very comfortable with just the bald, political will statement.
I think that's, thank you, Maureen. I think that's a really good one to bring out. So I've just sort of rejigged that a little bit. Pretty much as you'd said. And I wonder if there's, and sorry, it's been a little, I didn't look too closely at this method one, this past review. So I'm wondering if we say, just expand on that a little bit to say, or Or, I mean, maybe it's covered here. It recognizes BIM has very limited resources to directly produce additional housing and will generally be limited to facilitating. I think that says it actually. Sorry. So I'm going to retract my statement. Does anybody have any objections to this revised sentence? The shortcomings of this report is that it cannot, the shortcomings of this report are that, I guess, anyways, we can correct the grammar, are that it cannot take into account political will nor the economic feasibility of any of the proposed solutions. Does that cover it? Yeah, because I mean, I think we all acknowledge there's only so much the municipality can do. Like, so we're trying to say in this report, here's what we think the municipality, mayor and council can do. So let's do them. But I think it's correct to recognize there's only so much they can do. There's other factors out there that will be limiting to what can actually happen. Okay, so hearing no objections, I'll scroll along and then we can always come back if anybody has further thoughts. So housing targets, rental housing, I left all this research and background as Ron had pretty much done it, which was great. And then I went here for the recommendation. So I sort of pulled them out and put a box around them again, happy to have them reformatted, but I just sort of wanted to pull it out for us to see. So recommendation, establish housing targets for creation of rental housing. So that was just sort of to kind of make it a single sentence. And then a little bit of explanation, which I don't think I changed from the last time we saw this. Basically to talk about the unmet demand and then future demand, and then left those housing targets as we had talked about, that we estimate 30 units is the current unmet need. And then using Ron's sort of methodology that he found is going forward every 4 years, an additional 15 units, and then recognizing some of those to be below market. And then this is also what I'd like everybody's feedback on. I put in, I think we talked about this last time, priority, difficulty, and impact. That was something that we had talked about. And then these are just my suggestions at what they are. So I'm very happy for the committee to give me, to discuss those. And if other people have thoughts on what those should be for each one. So does anybody have any thoughts or comments on this particular? I think this is the meat of it. This is the main recommendation. There's others that follow, but this is, I think, the main one for this report.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to ask. In the same report, it also says that the increase in the population of Bowen Island was highly underestimated. And then you look at the number of 2030 and it says 60 total. And when I read that, I thought, how can it be? It's probably 60 next year or so. Like, I just didn't know. I don't know if that number is actually in the way. It gives a certain level of comfort. It's almost better to say that there's 30 units drastically required now. I don't know. I mean, it gives it level of comfort with 30, 2000. I don't know.
Ron, do you remember where that number 15 came from? I'm just scrolling through and I wondered, is it from sort of this, where there was these 15 households spending 50% of income, or did it come from somewhere else? Sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head where that, or if it was sort of a percentage of population growth and then the percentage that rented, that kind of thing. I don't remember. I wonder, is Ron still with us? I don't see him. Did he drop out?
I mean,
No, he's here, but he's muted.
He's here, but he's muted. Okay. There you are.
The extent of low income was from your Urbanics report.
Okay, so the 15 below market was from the Urbanics report.
Yeah.
And then I wonder about this, so we recognize as of today, we're estimating, and that's the best we can do, 30 units as the unmet demand. And then we sort of said for every 4 years, there's another 15 units. I can't remember, Ron, I felt like we talked about this. And I'm trying to remember where that logic came from. And was it based, I feel like it was based on the population growth and then the percentage of population that rents, that kind of a calculation. Does that make sense to people, that would be the projected growth? If we magically met the needs today and everything was neutral today, what would be the projected needs going forward? I would think projected population growth and then the percentage on average that rents. That kind of is logical to me. Do you remember, Ron, if that's how it was created, or does anybody else have any thoughts or ideas as how that should be done differently?
Those were the factors that we considered, but as I recall, going beyond the immediate need, I think we I think we kind of winged it as far as
okay.
Sure.
Okay. Well, maybe we could make it, because I actually think, expected population growth times average percentage of renters, that probably makes a lot of sense. So maybe we could sort of do that math. and figure out what those numbers are. What does everybody else think?
I just think there are larger forces at work, so to speak. Like,
Fair enough. Yeah. How do we estimate those though, right? Like it's better to do something, right? We want to have a number that we want to be able to give to estimate something, but you're right. There's so many other factors that it's, how do we account for those?
What I would suggest is two things. One is to include a statement somewhere in here about the 2021 census, and just say that those results are pending, and they may offer, this isn't the language, but there may be a very different picture in terms of percentage of renters, in terms of what the income looks like. And we're not going to know that fully before the end of the year. So making sure that it's clear that these are tentative.
Okay.
And you know, need to be revised. With where you've added tentative, I would say minimum projected needs.
Okay.
yeah, that helps, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So minimum.
Because I think it's going to be higher.
So I like this because if we do say take this into account, and I can double check this after the meeting, if we say this is where this number came from, so the projected needs minimum are these numbers, and then sort of this little red, we can put an asterisk or make it italics or whatever we need to do to kind of is that based on projected population growth times average percentage of renters, and then 2021 census to inform these numbers. So that we're giving, this is where it should come from, so that, in 6 months or whenever those numbers are available, someone can update this and say, oh yeah, we got, this is the population or whatever. I don't know how you do projected population growth, because I don't think the census tells us that, but I think that, based on, how else do you do it? You probably base it on historical, the change from last census and stuff. Maybe somebody else knows correctly. I don't know, Daniel, if you know if there's a methodology for projecting population growth other than just taking the change from historically and projecting it forward.
Yeah, it's hard because for some larger areas, BC puts out population projection numbers, the people projections, but they don't for Bowen. I know we've run into that in the past, is that it makes it more challenging. I was just looking up, I did for my master's thesis, it's called a household maintainer model for rental housing demand. And so it's trying to essentially do what you're looking at, but it tries to consider expected growth by age and how likely different ages are to form households. So if you have lots of 5-year-olds, they're not forming households, they're not driving more housing units, there's housing size, versus it's people in their 20s and 30s historically lead to more household formations. But I don't know, we don't have that data probably for the, would have that from the last census, from 2016 census, at which point it's it's much older. It'd be nicer to do it, right after census numbers come out.
Yeah.
But could we also mention that the previous prediction of growth in the population was significantly wrong or underestimated, and that therefore we feel that pattern could repeat itself again, because or you have to write something that the Housing Advisory Committee believes that this number is too low, but then it takes away from the value of the report. But I still think that 60, even the first 30, that includes 15 below market. So there's only 15 people looking for rental now. I just don't believe it. I think what you have to watch, that it doesn't give a level of comfort, which actually is in reality not true.
Yeah, that's what we've talked about before too. Is the challenge even of using past population projections to project into the future is it's well, if currently Bowen, would have more people living in it if there was housing for it, then it's hard to say, well, how it grew in the past is what the ideal situation is going forward, versus it's well, if we're continuing to be in a housing constrained environment, then this is what it looks like going forward.
Yeah, can you just calculate based on the past, well, the future looks so different? That's the bottom line. So So there has to be
Okay.
something in it that there is that we believe that these numbers are too low, if we all agree on that.
Could be a low estimation.
Exactly.
And should be revised as new information becomes available. Because I mean, that's all we can do is based on information we get, right? Like census data and all sorts of things. That's all you can kind of, that's the best we can do. Or, you know, taking the BC numbers and extrapolating, like, I don't know, this is not my area of expertise. So there's probably people who know better than I do. So I like the fact that if we actually just say, this is how we think it should be calculated. This is how we think those projected needs should be calculated. Expected population growth, the average percentage of renters, if everybody's in agreement, like that to me makes sense. It's very clear. And like, if you can come up with an appropriate methodology for the population growth, which again, there's probably are, appropriate ones out there. And then the historic average of renters, we have that. I think that's, I just feel like that's kind of our best bet. And if we give that methodology, we give these as estimated numbers, then it's up to staff or whoever on an ongoing basis or however this gets used in the future, that it's very easy to update. These aren't fixed numbers, right? These are just, this is our suggestion, and then this is the methodology we think to going forward to use. And then I like that because then it doesn't date this document, right? This document isn't this fixed thing, oh, we've got these 2 targets. It's like, this is how it can be used going forward. So in 10 years, you can still be using that same methodology of how to predict rental housing. Does that work for everybody?
Yes, Danielle.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Daniel? I mean, from your point of view, because really it's staff going to be using this potentially in the future or updating it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's like, I think if you show your assumptions, then at least it's clear how, how the model and how the numbers have come out.
Yeah.
Because then it is, if you assume, well, there's more unmet need, we should assume more housing are needed. Well, then that's, it would change your output versus if you say, we just want to look at what happened in the past and use that going forward. I think as long as it's clear what, where it came from.
Okay, great. Okay, well, let's leave that as this is shown then. And then what do people feel about this priority, difficulty, impact? Firstly, do those 3 make sense? And then what do we feel specifically for this recommendation? I felt priority high because I think we all probably feel like this is a pretty high priority. Difficulty, in my opinion, from council and mayor is pretty low, I think. And then impact, what do people think?
Should be high. If the priority is high, the impact is high.
Okay. Other people feel high or medium? Ron?
As far as impact, aren't we just talking about the impact of council adopting these targets?
I would think so. Yeah. Like this is the recommendation for them to create housing targets. And then what is the impact of them creating housing targets?
Right.
Yeah. So that's why I sort of felt it wasn't high. I mean, I would like to think it would be, but the actual reality of like, council approves this, what happens the next day, like it's a great thing for them to do. And I hope that in future it will help inform decisions. Like that's what I think the housing targets do, is then set priorities for council and mayor as they're doing their, island plans and all of that kind of stuff. It helps set priorities for them to say, hey, we really want to reach these targets. How are we going to do it? But in terms of like, right away, what kind of, I don't know. So long-term, I hope it has a high impact. I'm not sure. Maybe Maureen, Michael, you can offer some insight as counselors, like what do you feel the impact of this, or is that, again, is that the right thing to have in here? Maybe impact isn't for us to say in this report, because I don't know. Yeah. What do you think?
I'm actually more inclined to put medium. I think if executed, it could be quite high, but I think we're playing with semantics. I'd be quite happy to see the medium there. Okay. Not to create the expectation this is going to change the world.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Okay, so let's leave it at medium. That seems to be the majority feeling. Okay, great. So I'm going to move on from that one. If anybody has any thoughts.
Robyn, could I just correct myself on?
Sure.
I think I misspoke on one point when you're asking where these numbers came from. In fact, the current need is not based on the that report. Rather, that report is the one the urbanics report is what grossly underestimated what the need would be by now. According to that report, we need almost nothing. So the 30 seemed rather was the consensus of the impressions of all the developers we talked to.
Yeah, that's my memory as well. It was more anecdotal. It was research you did, talking to people, and then I think us as a group, we all also, my memory, the last meeting was we all kind of agreed that that was a good number to.
I think we're confident that that's a minimal number. Yeah.
Again, it's a minimum, but I think that it's safe to say that's there.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, thanks, Ron. I did want to address seasonal workers because it was in here, but I just feel like at this point there isn't any like I don't think we have enough information. So, and there wasn't, I certainly didn't have time in the last month to do any. So I think it would be, if you want to start addressing seasonal workers housing needs, that you have to just do a bit of further research, engage with the communities, with the businesses in the community, and so priority, I'd said medium, difficulty medium, impact medium. I don't know. What do people think? Because it certainly isn't, I wouldn't say it's a high priority. I think it's important to do, but at this exact moment is a high. Maybe some businesses might, argue with that. I don't know. Difficulty, I'd say, is medium. I wouldn't say it's low because, it's going to take either some volunteer time or some staff time to engage and sort of establish that, do a bit more research. And then impact, again, I just sort of went middle of the road, medium. Just do people, Ron, go ahead.
Robyn, I know that we have there's seasonal employment variation on Bowen Island, but do workers, do people who work during the summer and not during the winter leave Bowen during the winter?
I think there definitely are. There are ones who do that. Just anecdotally, I saw on Facebook, I think a university student was coming to do a job here and was looking for housing, just for those few months. So I don't think it's hard to say what the numbers are without doing research, but absolutely just based on anecdotal evidence, there are for sure people who just come here, stay for the summer and then leave. Yeah.
Hey, Robyn, do we have to say if priority is medium, high or low, or just, if it says further research and engagement, we don't really know. So then why just take it out?
Sure, I'm okay with that. Like I just sort of threw it in there to be kind of consistent.
Yeah, but I just wonder how meaningful it is because
Well, it is a recommendation. So how important do we think it is to do this research? I would think the businesses on Bowen probably think it's fairly high because I think they probably struggle every summer to get staff. So it's sort of responding to that part of the community. So kind of letting council know, do we think it's important to do further research? Like, is it a priority for them to either instruct staff to spend time or instruct us as the volunteer committee to spend time doing it? So that's why I would think that maybe it's an important one to put in there, but I'm open to discussion. Maureen, yes, go ahead.
The topic of housing has come up in the Community Economic Development Committee, both at a workshop that we had about a month ago, and again at our last committee meeting. So there is some outreach to local businesses that is planned, along with potential discussion of a sort of matching of overhoused and understaffed people, and as well as, if it gets any legs under it, discussion of the Ucluelet worker housing pilot. So the research may not end up, at least initially, on the shoulders of this committee. And because CEDC has good established relationships with the bulk of the business community, it seems to make no sense for it to move forward there.
Okay, excellent. So why don't we just leave it at that then, rather than putting priorities here? We'll just reference it and say, this is something that should be addressed, but hey, let's look at what the CEDC is doing. Ron, did you have a comment?
Oh, that's good.
That's good. Okay, great. So we'll just, we can word that. I don't know how to word that. Needed. CEDC currently undertaking some of this work. Okay. Okay, ownership targets. This, I tried to wrap my head around it. And again, Ron had done such great work on researching the rentals. We didn't have kind of as much on ownership targets. So and it kind of gets addressed, in my opinion, a little bit more in the next section, which is about housing typology. So I don't know if this should just be taken out or if it should be addressed. But further research recommended to create targets, because I don't think we have a recommendation for specific targets on ownership, other ownership models. So those would include below market ownership, single family houses with flexible lock-off suites and or rental ready, which is something, we've been talking about this committee for a while. So recommendation further research to create targets for creation of diverse housing types as ownership model. Oh, so I kind of repeated myself here. And then if there's different priorities. So this one I was a little fuzzy on whether we want to include it or if we just sort of make mention to it and refer to because if I don't want to skip over it, but refer down to the different housing types. I feel like those incorporate like, hey, as ownership model, like ownership, private ownership housing is being developed, these are the different types that we should address within them. So I don't know, what do people think if there should be targets developed?
Robyn, if I may, I think we're taking just the reality of workloads. I would drop this, because if you look at it, research to create targets based on ownership. I mean, excuse me, Robyn, I think I'd be quite happy not to see this here, because I just think it's unrealistic in terms of an expectation it's going to get done.
Right. Well, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, realizing everybody's limited capacity and what the usefulness would be, if specific targets for that. But yeah, Chris?
Yeah, I think the further research always tells me that nothing is going to happen for a while.
Right.
So I kind of think that if it just would, and it says it would be the Housing Advisory Committee, encourages or something like that, that the private market, provides a larger variety of homes, because
right,
the demand is there. We all know that. But if we're trying to find a number, I find if the research and the calculations of what the need is in the way of actually getting something done tomorrow, then I just don't believe it's that useful. You know what I mean? I mean, like if you don't know exactly how much you have to build, but you know that if somebody would build something that it's bought tomorrow, then what's the problem?
Right. Okay, so I think I'm in agreement with this. So we could come up with a sentence up here. Okay, I'm gonna still leave that as a. I think we can come up with a sentence up here, and I can wordsmith that. Would be something about basically, it's going to be too challenging to come up with that. Instead, we would say, look, because I want to refer down to the housing type recommendations here, because I think this is more useful information about these are the housing types that are lacking, and that any project, essentially probably rezoning, that comes to council, these types of housing should be considered to be included in that. So I think that's more useful.
You could maybe add to that the reason why it isn't built is that there is no zoning that permits it.
Or limited zoning.
Well, if everything is, if 90% of the land is zoned single family, and as an owner you want to build something and you look at the zoning and you can't do it, then it doesn't make any sense, right? So
okay, current unmet or current lacking. Sorry, this isn't worded very well, but lacking diverse housing types that council, should consider.
Identify lacking zoning for diverse.
Yeah.
Lacking zoning for diverse
any,
housing types.
Proposal coming forward. This includes the lack of zoning for these diverse housing types. Okay, we can fix that up. Okay, so I'll go into the housing type. So this is predominantly, I just sort of retitled and shuffled things. The content hasn't changed very much. These following housing types have been identified as needs for Bowen Island. That's not worded very well. If anybody wants to
Robyn,
wordsmith that. Yeah.
Can we go back to that paragraph you just wrote?
Sure. Yeah.
Is that useful? The paragraph.
Is it not? I just, in my mind, it was addressing, because we've addressed rental and then we haven't addressed ownership. So if people feel that it's not, and it just, it's not doing anything for anybody, then I'm happy to be
Oh.
persuaded to take it out. But it was more in my mind, we addressed rental and we didn't address ownership as a model.
Well, I think if there's flow through of housing, that's what it encourages, right? It makes a huge difference in. It says elsewhere, for instance, about housing for the elderly. It says that people stay in their homes. Now, guess why? You know what I mean? Because there is no zoning for anything else. And if would they move to? And then it says that they're looking for low maintenance housing. Well, so it's obvious that the private market will respond if you provide them the ability to do that, which is provide zoning. It's just that simple. So I don't understand why that doesn't link. I actually think rental and ownership relate as well, because if you get, I think that Danielle said earlier in the meeting that most people who seem to be moving to Bowen Island are people that have whatever, what was the income, $150,000 per year or so. But what do you think that is doing? That is moving people that would have bought homes into the rental market. Because it's interconnected.
Okay, Maureen. So what are your you were just wondering if this just isn't useful at all? Anybody else have thoughts on it?
I wonder if its purpose could be clearer then.
Okay.
HAC recommends in providing greater diversity of zoning to enable diverse housing types, and just leave it at that.
That's okay.
But the things that have come up specifically in relation to ownership that we could be talking about have to do with what was in the original version of this, the lock-off suites, the whole notion of flexible homes that you can live in with your kids and you can live in when you're older. So while we can't provide targets for particular ownership models, we can recommend that this isn't the wording, but the notion of flexible homes be
encouraged,
be emphasized,
or enabled,
enabled. Yeah.
Okay, so what about including flexible homes, suite, etc., or rent? What do we call it? Rental ready, that kind of thing.
Rental ready, accessibility, accessible, and so on. Because while we may have little to no influence on single family homes, we can provide feedback on, or we can provide that encouragement for people to think more broadly about the sort of the home as a living thing, as time goes by.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. Okay, so creating specific targets for ownership models would be challenging. Instead, HAC recommends providing greater diversity of zoning to enable the creation of diverse housing types, including flexible homes, lock-off suites, rental ready, accessible, etc. Refer to the following section identifying the diverse housing types this is not a very good sentence. Refer to the following section identifying the diverse housing types that have found to be lacking. It's not the right wording. That I can't figure out the right wording for this.
Identifying the housing types that are lacking on Bowen Island.
That are lacking on Bowen Island. Okay.
Okay.
That work for everybody? Just
a
little bit clearer and simpler. Yeah, I think that I agree with that change, that the emphasis should be on the zoning, because that's really, I think, all you can do for that ownership model. Okay, good. So housing types, again, not much changed. Adult oriented low maintenance housing, and often could be referred to as senior housing, but we wanted to do that. And in here, it does recognize that I think we sort of say it here that, there's lots of different people at different stages of life who might want, that kind of low maintenance housing. And it's not necessarily just people in a certain older age group. So the recommendation, encourage creation of adult-oriented housing, BIM to actively encourage the development of adult-oriented housing, ground-oriented low maintenance, etc., as part of diverse housing development, both rental and ownership, and possibly other forms of land tenure. This could be achieved through proactive rezonings, community on land or private land, soliciting expressions of interest from private entities, and or creating a policy to incentivize their development. Exact numbers to set a specific target will need more research, including a possible survey. So do we want to take that out? Because I don't know that, is it really a goal at any point for us to create specific targets for this kind of housing?
So does it say if it's rental or market?
I've said in here, it says both rental and ownership, and possibly other forms of land tenure. Yeah. So it does say that there. But yeah, I guess that question is, do we think it, like, I appreciate Michael's comment is like, well, is anybody actually going to do the work? Like, there's really no point saying it and saying we, need to research if it's just not going to happen. So is there any value in trying to suggest setting targets for these kinds of things, actually putting numbers to it at some time in the future? You
can, Robyn, but you've neatly put it into the realm of future obscurity. So frankly, I don't know why, so we don't spend too much time talking about it. We just delete it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what does everything? Because I mean, it's certainly something this committee could take on in the future. Like, I mean, we've got lots of time. Housing needs aren't going away anytime soon. So in future years, it could be that there are committees you want to do, once we set the rental targets and those look good, maybe, in a year or two, somebody wants to take on these funds and do some research as to how much, accessible and universal housing do we need? What is the demand for, basically, downsizing condos? Like, I don't know. And then I don't know if that's the municipality and trickle down to our committee, if that is our responsibility, or if that's kind of a marketplace thing, right? That you kind of let the market do it, but the mayor and council, the municipality does what they can on their side, and then you just sort of let the free market take hold. I don't know.
Hey, Robyn, one thing kind of struck me, that normally when you read about what type of housing is suitable for which group of people, it normally says that ground-oriented units are the most suitable for families, for young families. And what you read in what you already wrote above there is that for seniors, it's more accessibility, because it says that it can be basically anything. You know what I mean? So if it can be anything, but maybe the key thing is that it has to be either flexible to be accessible, something like that, right? I
agree. So, because accessible can be ground oriented, or accessible can have an elevator, right? Or ramps, or whatever. So agree.
I think for the family oriented housing being ground oriented is more that kids can play and meet, families can meet.
And we'll talk about that as well. Yeah, I think I agree with that statement. Yeah. Okay, so I'm okay with that small change.
Suggestion in the wording of the recommendation where it says from private entities, could you add in private and non-profit entities?
Okay. Yeah.
Robyn?
Okay. Ron, yes, go ahead.
In Edmonton, the term adult-oriented is a code word for we don't allow kids.
Right.
And can we insert a sentence to indicate that this would not preclude children?
Exactly.
Well, it's an interesting, and I'm happy to, because this was titled seniors housing, right? Like that was the original title of it. It was seniors housing. Yeah. And then I sort of argued that, well, that type of housing you're talking about, which again is like, basically condos. We're essentially talking about condos, whether they're actual multi-story or, townhouse units or something like that. They're low maintenance. People can downsize to them, all of those kinds of things. And then my argument was, well, it's not always people, whatever you've called seniors, I don't know what, 55, 60, 65 plus that want that kind of housing. There's probably lots of other people at different stages of life. I would say mostly singles or couples who want that kind of housing. And so actually, no, you know what? I'm just looking, it says, this does not mean they're exclusively age restricted. They can be mixed with other types of housing. So I think that sort of covers it in that sentence. So it's not saying it should be like an adult only exclusive, development. It's just saying to address the needs of those, of that group of people, this is the kind of housing that they need. And then differentiated from family oriented housing, which is coming up next. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Maureen.
One of the main differences between these two is the size of the property. Is that right?
Well, we can come back to this one. So I think that's close. Let's do family oriented, and then we can look at the two of them together, maybe. So again, it didn't change this much. It just identified, I think, families, but essentially households that were spending, a lot of money on their housing, and anecdotal evidence of the need for family-oriented housing, which was partly from the Birch survey. So recommendation: encourage creation of diverse housing types, which I think is yeah, okay, hang on.
Right.
Recommendation: encourage creation of family-oriented housing. BIM to actively encourage the development of diverse housing types, row houses, townhouses, multiplexes, etc., through proactive rezonings, community-owned land or private land, soliciting expression of interest from private entities, private or nonprofit entities, and or creating a policy. So I think I basically kind of copied it over. So I don't know if it's worth having these as two separate things or not, but it's kind of basically a repeat. I think it's, I don't know, in my opinion, I think it is worth, there are distinct things, right? They are distinct needs in the community.
But would it be better to be more specific? Like, for instance, if row houses, like that kind of implies the stairs in them are more family oriented, and if apartments that are accessible for elevators are more suitable for seniors. I mean, you don't really read it in here. I think for not just seniors, but for people who need accessibility is the most important, right? So it's almost, is the difference accessibility, and it's not really families or seniors, or is it with families, is that it's a social objective in my mind that families can meet and provide the right environment for kids. Like, if, I don't know, the kids will be kids, so they probably find their friends anyway somehow. But I just don't know if the criteria is correct. Like, there's some forms of housing that exclude or are less likely to be suitable for specific groups of people. But it's not. There's something quite. I don't know if it's the right way to distinguish.
Well, yeah, so that was, I guess that's where in my mind it is distinguished. So if you think of row houses, townhouses, multiplexes, fourplexes, sixplexes, whatever it is, that, and ground oriented, those kinds of things. I don't know if this is the right wording, but like, essentially let's think of like a townhouse complex that's sort of aimed at families, right? And you kind of get like, it's like a little compound, there's little laneways, kids are out playing ball hockey in the road and all that stuff. And you tend to get lots of families live there. And it's like you say, Fritz, there's that social connection, and it's, that kind of thing, versus, which isn't to say you couldn't have some seniors living there, which isn't to say you couldn't have some single people living there. It's not like it's exclusive, but there's certain design lends itself, say, to families and that social thing. Whereas, like you say, like I know at the Cape, they were talking about, doing like a waterfront, multi-story building with condos. Like, that probably lends itself more to people who are retired and want a great view and are downsizing from their house and want a bit bigger condo on one level with an elevator. So it's that kind of, that's in my mind kind of the separate distinction. Again, not that you can't mix those, but they're appealing to different groups, I think, and we should encourage both of them. So I don't know if we, like, I'm just thinking of like some bullet points just to kind of pull them out and make them a little clearer would be helpful.
I would only put in family. For families, what is the biggest attraction for families to live in? Because if every form of housing somehow families will live in because there's nothing else, well, fair enough. But I think it has to be a focus on what ideally, or would put people, for families or young families, is an exciting, we're thinking about kids here, right? Young families are looking forward to the form of housing that they want to live in. Right. And if that's missing, we have to build that. And if the other thing, from my mind, is still mostly based on, you wrote it higher up. You said for seniors, it's mostly low maintenance, having the ability to be away, visit their kids or so and stay there for a month, whatever. And to be accessible, and maybe have social amenity spaces in buildings where people can meet. You know what I mean? Like that it's not, but typically apartment buildings do not encourage people to meet. You have corridors and it's just too close. You know what I mean? It's, you know, it's just too close for comfort.
Okay. So what if we said social spaces designed for their needs? Because the social spaces for, say, adult-oriented housing would be like a room with a little kitchen on it, and, you know, kind of like you find in strata apartments. Whereas in my mind, for family stuff, it would be like a playground, right? Like that would be, you have a family-oriented complex, like townhouse complex with a playground in the middle. That to me says, like, screams families, right? Like the kids all go to the playground and parents stand around and socialize and all that kind of stuff. So in my mind, that's the difference. So maybe I'll put playground-oriented, family-oriented social spaces.
Oh, kids play anywhere. It doesn't have to be playground.
Agreed,
Playground
but
is useful, but
yeah, playground or similar.
it's the access, the direct access to grades and meeting people. You know, whatever. That's what it is.
Yeah, agreed. Because like say, my cousins, when we were growing up, lived in a townhouse complex and it was full of families. So when we go visit, like say, there was always kids playing ball hockey. Like it was just kids were out in the little laneways and everything, doing and playing and whatever. So yeah, you're right. They used any space available to play. So okay. So between this one and the other one, again, they're pretty much, except for some of these descriptors, the recommendation is the same, that these being, you know, encouraged through proactive rezonings, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know whether we didn't kind of land on anywhere about, do we sort of, I think it's a fair comment to say, like, exact numbers for specific targets need more research. We're not saying that necessarily that needs to happen, but it's just like, if you actually want to come up with exact numbers, you'd have to do research, and that can be determined at a future time. We're not recommending that it be done. It's just simply a comment that that you would have to do more research to set specific targets. So is everybody okay with those ones? I'm going to see if I can fix this formatting here.
I'm still a little stuck on Ron's comment about adult oriented.
Okay. Okay.
And I mean, what do we mean by that? We mean, you say seniors, low maintenance.
I mean, the distinction for me is like not young kids. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that's where I'm coming from. Like the housing needs for somebody with, you know, I'm guessing like kids 12 and under who need that playground space, need that open space, they need to run around, they're going to elementary school, all that stuff, I think is quite different from, you know, people who don't have young children in the household, whether that's teenagers who are less active or they have adult children, like lots of people have kids in their young 20s or whatever age living with them. So it's kind of, in my mind, you know, adults versus young children who have very different social needs. Ron, go ahead.
In the header and the first paragraph, why not just delete adult oriented and call it low maintenance housing?
Yeah,
sure. I'm okay with that. Are we okay keeping this sort of the, why don't we say adult, okay? So low maintenance housing is aimed at both seniors and others seeking low maintenance simplified housing, i.e. not family oriented. Because it's basically just distinguishing it. I mean, maybe we flip these and say family oriented housing first and then like all others. Kind of thing.
Could you expand who it's aimed at? It's
sure.
Singles, it's singles, and it's probably couples.
Couples without young children. Without, where am I? I can spell without young children. Why is that coming up? Is aimed at senior singles, couples without young children, and others seeking low maintenance simplified housing. So I'll just take out this family oriented. Delete that. And simplified is not the right word. We'll just say low maintenance. Yeah.
But do you have to be that specific? Can you just say seniors and others who, something like that?
Well, I mean, I don't think it hurts to give other examples: seniors, couples without children, you know, singles, couples without. Maybe I'll just put slash because it could be a single person or a couple without young children.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because, you know, there's also, I would put in this mix, you know, the folks in their, say, early 20s who are branching out from home for the first time, you know, working a, you know, whatever paying job and they just want to like either rent a place, or maybe if they can afford it and they can have a down payment, they can, you know, buy a small apartment on Bowen, and that's their home for the next however many years until if and when they choose to have a family or whatever. I think they are that too. Like, you know, you're in your early 20s and working a job and having fun. You don't want to mow the lawn and clean the gutters and all those kinds of things as well necessarily. So I think you're right. It's really not to do with, I'm glad we're talking this through. It's not really to do with age. It's really to do with, you know, just, yeah, simple strata type housing that are low maintenance. And then the difference, and then something else is the family oriented housing. Okay. Are we all right where we sort of landed on that?
Yeah, it needs a bit of weeding for the references to adult oriented, but we don't need to do that here.
Okay, so I'll just make that, I'm just trying to pick different colors. We'll make that purple. So that just needs to be edited a bit. Okay, so I think we got the gist of it and people are okay with these. Oh, so what I would like to look at, we didn't in the last one, is this priority difficulty impact. And I'm guessing it would be the same for both of these, but oh, sorry. Yeah, low maintenance housing and family oriented housing. I've said, I think medium, high, or I said high for this one. So what do we feel the priorities are for these, the difficulty, and then the impact? I feel like the priority is high because this is something I think that is really has to be addressed on Bowen, like in the coming, you know, have like years, that if we want creation of these diverse housing types, we very proactively need to encourage them in these different ways. You know, if we kind of just, if we don't do anything, we're just going to keep getting single family homes. So my sense is it's high. I would say difficulty is medium. I don't think it's like, it's low. I don't think it's just a simple thing you could kind of do in a couple of weeks and pass it. I think there's a little bit of work to do in it. But I also don't think it's a high level of difficulty. I don't think this is like overly challenging with lots of complexity and, you know, all that stuff. I think, so that was my sense for medium. And I think the impact could be very high if it's successful. You know, for example, picking a lot like was done with the, below the community center, I can't remember what it's called, area whatever, where the new rental housing is, that was proactively rezoned, right? And then sold to a developer as rezoning. So that, and it happened, it got built, right? So that I think had a huge impact. So if we could do more of that with these different housing types, I think you could have a very big impact on Bowen. So what do people think?
Well, on one thing, if it says exact numbers to set specific targets, we'll need more research. But I always find that, like, do we actually need to set specific targets at this time, or
I feel like the majority of people want to take that out. Like I feel like everybody's kind of more inclined to just remove that. Like I know Michael is, Maureen's nodding non. Do you feel like that could just go?
Yes, because you're going to grab a number out of the sky.
So maybe we put it not in the recommendation, but maybe it actually just goes up here as a comment. Like
I don't think a report should not read that like there's more research needed all the time, because then it encourages delay in my mind. You know what I mean? Oh, we don't have exact targets yet. Does it matter?
Yeah.
I mean, if you know it's going to be absorbed tomorrow, if you build it.
Right. Okay. So if people are okay just leaving out any mention of specific targets for these two.
The other approach you could take is
just one thing. Should the
sorry, yeah.
Could you back up, please?
Yeah. Up here.
Yeah. Should the term adult oriented housing be replaced by low maintenance housing?
Yeah, I'll go. Oh, sorry. In here.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
And just going back to that for further research statement, I mean, it would probably be taken out everywhere and then just have one blanket statement. Further research is needed on X, Y, and Z.
X, Y, Z.
So you're always doing it once and not having that sort of, oh God, further research reaction.
Okay.
Further research is needed sounds like the last sentence of everybody's master's thesis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So targets for ownership. Okay. We'll worry about that later. So I'll put that in purple here. Okay. So what do people feel about, okay, are we happy? Because I want to keep moving because this is taking a lot longer than I'd hoped. So, but I think it's good. Are we okay with priority, medium, medium, and high, or what did I put? High, medium, high? What do people think?
I think it's also high priority.
Okay.
I think families are having just as difficult, if not more difficulty, in finding spots.
Yeah.
Okay.
agree.
All right, so I'm going to leave it as high, medium, high for both of those, and we'll move along. Okay, great. So the next one was universally accessible housing. So BIM should, I'm not, well, yeah, so this was from Ron's report. So BIM should do everything reasonably possible to ensure that public buildings, sidewalks, and buses are accessible to people in wheelchairs. In the construction of new, I'm not sure that that belongs here, because this is really about housing. So although it's a valid comment, I'm not sure that it's in relation to housing. In the construction of new single-family homes, as most such homes are built for specific buyers, there seems to be no reason to require enhanced access. Where such accessibility is required, buyers can demand it. New multifamily buildings, however, should include some wheelchairs, some maybe we'll say accessible features.
Robyn.
Yep.
It's a nice motherhood statement, Univer, but I think this whole issue of accessibility is covered by other regulations, whether it's building regulations, provincial standards. It's nice to put it in. I have no problem with it, but I mean, I think to all intents and purposes, it's not going to be covered by this group. It's already covered by others at a provincial level and code level. The rest. You know, what more can you say about accessibility? I think it's all been said.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, go ahead, Fritz. Yeah.
Well, I agree with what Mike was saying, but I actually find this a very negative statement because if we first say that housing should be flexible, right? Like earlier on, it should be designed to respond to the needs of a family, you know, as circumstances change, right? And then houses that permit more accessibility, or I mean, the more flexible the houses are, obviously, the more they can respond to this. So this actually almost has the opposite. It says here, as most such homes are built for specific buyers. That's, you know what I'm saying? That means that they're built for a couple that has kids now. You know what I mean? It's not built for anything in the future. So this statement contradicts the need to build homes that are more flexible in use over the years. Now, some homes can be flexible in use and be more like townhouses with stairs, and some of them can be more flexible in use and are maybe more level. So that doesn't mean that each house has to be able to do everything. It's more that the houses that you build that have certain characteristics are designed to deliver the flexibility that they can. Like a townhouse can have a lock-off suite. A townhouse can, or if you have a cluster can be 3 vertical units, or it can be 3 horizontal units, and they use up the same space, right? So I think it should be more general. It's just.
Yeah, I agree. So to encourage flexibility in the construction of new housing, some accessible features can be encouraged to be included. That's a little bit clumsy, but if I think you're right, that's saying better than, I'm not sure that this sentence is useful now. Because what I'm thinking also is it's just in new housing. It's not multifamily. So for example, what I'm thinking is, you know, if it would be possible, because it's all, in my mind, it's all incentives. I don't think these should be requirements. I think Michael's right to a point that the building code has certain requirements. And then as far as I know, the only sort of provincial or federal requirements are when you have certain funding, which is, you know, like for sort of affordable housing and those accessibility requirements. But say, for example, we're getting more, we have more and more places where there's floor space ratio limits and all those kinds of things. Same as we've talked about before, if we, you know, have a lock-off suite, you get a few more square feet. If you want to do universal design for your new home, maybe you get a few more square feet to achieve that, like that. So it's kind of incentivizing those things. And I agree with Fritz, it should be about, the focus should be on the flexibility and sort of the long-term flexibility of the housing. Maybe so we'd say long-term flexibility. Because I know, for example, in City of Vancouver, Fritz, you could probably know a bit better than I do. They require certain things. So like on the main floor of the house, you have to have certain door widths, a bathroom of a certain size. Like there has to be all those things. They're like mandating that you do it. I don't think we need to go that far, but we could encourage it and say, hey, if you actually want to put these things in so that the life of this building, this housing unit, which should be 50, 60, if not lots more years, can be flexible throughout its life.
Yeah, maybe one of the things we can do later is actually give examples, because many times examples are very useful. And what you now say about the City of Vancouver, right? The City of Vancouver requires a bathroom on every main floor. And then you may say, yeah, but I need the stairs to get up to it. They say, no, you need to have a bathroom, not accessible bathroom. That doesn't mean it has to be all there, but it's designed as a bathroom. If you put the shower in or not, doesn't matter, but the plumbing is there, the rough plumbing is there. Now, if you think about somebody who has a skiing accident, or somebody who gets a parent over, you can get them up the stair one time, now you're in the house, right? So the idea that something has to be 100% accessible or not, the City of Vancouver has already said, no, if you can build a powder room, you can build a full bathroom, but you don't have to finish it as a full bathroom.
Yeah,
and the smaller homes, it really makes a difference. So we notice every time you do a house on a 33-foot lot. But I think that examples, you know, if it looks like the governments are forcing things, that has a purpose. But what I find about examples, if people read it, they may actually want to do it. They think about it and say, oh shit, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, agreed. So that's why I think it should be encouraging and using incentives. It's not a mandate. It's a, hey, this is a good idea to think about, and we'll give you a few extra square feet in your house, or whatever it is, but whatever those incentives are based on. So are we okay with this? Because I want to keep moving along. So to encourage long-term flexibility in the construction of new housing, some accessible features can be encouraged to be included. For example, wider doors, hallways and stairways. I might just put a semicolon there. Bathrooms on every main floor, etc. So there's some, you know, maybe see examples from City of Vancouver.
And maybe here you can repeat the flexibility that we mentioned above, that the
Well,
house can adapt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of that exercise.
So the house can be adapted easily in the future for changing needs.
I would say the house can adapt.
The house can adapt.
Yes,
Okay.
it's the house itself that's going to adapt.
Okay, can adapt easily in future for changing needs.
There's
Okay,
a
I
little,
think that sums it up.
there's a little bit of wordsmithing needed in that one, but maybe
Okay.
just add it, Robyn.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a little bit of editing to clarify that. So recommendation to encourage inclusion of accessible/universal design. BIM develop a policy to incentivize the use of accessible and/or universal design principles for some or all units in new housing. I'm just going to agree with that for new housing. Priority, I'd say medium. Difficulty, well, maybe it's a little more complicated. I said low, and impact medium. So what do people feel about that?
Well, I have an opinion about it. Well, I do, because if you design your future housing to be flexible and adaptable, and you don't have all the issues that we have now, is it then a medium priority or is it a high priority? You know what I mean? The problem that we have now is that they're all single family lots. They were all built by people who were able when they built the homes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So none of that has ever been considered. And now we're wondering why we're missing something.
Okay. And I just sort of added guidelines there. So whether they develop guidelines or a policy. So I'm not sure. Daniel, I don't know whether you have an opinion as to whether are guidelines suitable, or would it be a policy? Is that one of those easier or hard? Obviously, a guideline is probably a lot easier than developing a policy.
Yeah, and it depends how it's implemented, like how, you know, if we incentivize people, are we like encouraging people, or are we incentivizing people?
Well,
right?
yeah, okay. I'd like to think we could incentivize them, but
right.
Yeah, because like I say, I think there's an advantage if you say to, hey, make your main floor universally designed, and you'll get an extra X square feet for that in a FSR type zone. I think there's an incentive, right? People will go, great, I can get a few more square feet. I'll have a more spacious house, and by the way, that's great. It means, like you say, I break a leg, I have an elderly, you know, family member visit or stay with us for a time. Like, it works for everybody, right? Okay, so sorry, priority, Fritz, do you think it's a high priority?
Well, I just say that to encourage discussion too, you know.
What's the consensus from everybody else? Medium priority, is that okay? And I don't know, difficulty. I think now that I think about difficulty is probably medium, because it's not like this is a, like do it in a minute kind of thing. This is takes a bit of work to develop a guideline or a policy. And impact, I'd say medium. Should we leave it at that? Hearing no objections? Okay.
Okay, maybe if you have the word incentivize, right? Does it make sense to say, for example, by providing additional floor space, like bonus floor space or whatever people find easy to understand?
Would be additional floor space for
permitted floor space, yeah.
For including,
something like that.
Yeah. Fine. Universal design elements, something like that. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. All right, let's move along. So opportunities. I sort of shoved future research in here just because I wanted to put it somewhere. This was just bits that were left in the report, and I sort of shifted them to the end because, again, I didn't want to bury the lead. So like the main ones are at the beginning, and then this is just more information. So opportunities, vacant, I guess this really is opportunities for future research. So there you go. Vacant buildings and short-term rentals. This was like further research, undertakes research to discover the possibility of potentially rentable properties that are now vacant. So that, and this wording didn't change much from the last report. Available land, looking into the available community land. So I added this, I think, for instance, we worked on this together. And I added this recommendation to explore at a high level the potential of each of the sites listed above for the creation of housing types as identified in this report. This research could give council direction to proactively rezone the lots and or identify further opportunities for expressions of interest. So I feel like that's an important one to leave in the report. Oh yeah, and then this one I put at the end because none of these had direct action. Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead. Let's talk about these ones first.
Yeah, no, I find just that word research, like, can it just speak to something a bit more simple, like to test the suitability or the like something that I find that research to discover, like,
yeah, I'm happy to change the wording.
Like more example driven, like what the planning, you don't have to write anything down, but what the planning department, what council could do, right, is to say from, what is the potential of these various lots and to test it.
Right, so this on the community land one specifically here. Okay.
Like it's a bit more result driven. That's what I mean. Like it says, undertake research to explore the potential of each of the sites listed above for the creation of housing types as indicated amount. So
maybe the actual recommendation here is because I think there was huge benefit in proactively rezoning that land, and I think it's I think that's where there could be value. So maybe it's more specific. Identify community lands for rezoning to encourage diverse housing types. I don't know. Does this work?
Because so in my mind, you can just do it. And I found that if you read the sentence, it means like there's tons of stuff that needs to be researched before anybody can do anything. And I just don't think that's true.
Okay.
You just have to get on with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's probably what would, in my mind, that's what this is talking about. So identify community lands for rezoning to encourage, and again, it's not necessarily us. It could be, I know there's the mayor's standing community land. So like there might be, so it's not necessarily saying this, but it's saying this is what, we encourage should be done, whoever it is. BIM planning department or other committee of council.
Identify the potential. Just go straight to that.
To identify, yeah. Identify the potential. Okay. Okay, I like that. I think that works for me. And then priority, I said medium, medium, medium. So although I think it could have a high impact, because I think that how that worked in the past did have quite a high impact. So
Hey, so there's that difference between medium, high, and low. There doesn't seem to be any lows. But is that because council is running out of time, or is it because it is an actual, like, is it a medium priority for council at this time, or is it a medium?
I would say it's within this report. Like it's us saying, because I mean, we can say everything in the report is high priority, and then, you know, what do you action first, right? So if we kind of at least attempt to identify, look, if you can only tackle one thing, like tackle these, or one or two, tackle these high priority, then next do the medium, and then next do the low kind of thing. So I think it's
like, it was a question, like, we have two councillors present. So like, how do you, is it, what's the classification of high, medium, low? Was that affected by council running out of time, or is it is more, is it unrelated?
I think it's unrelated, Fritz.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
In part because, you know, council is a continuing body, regardless of the people who are on it. And these recommendations will, yes, they'll go to council, but they'll be the keepers of the recommendations will most likely be staff.
So then how can it be, if, yeah, so then if it's high or low, does it mean, is it then based on availability of staff, or is it because it's high anyway, but staff is not available?
Well, I
But
mean,
you
I
know
think
what I
it's like
mean?
anything in life. You can't work on 10 things at once, right? You've got to decide which one's the most important, work on that, you know, first or second, and
Yeah, but then
get it finished.
isn't that for this council or the next council to determine what their priorities are?
I think so, but we can make a recommendation. Like that's what this whole report is. This whole report is a recommendation. So our recommendation is that, you know, the two at the top or whatever are the highest priority, and that they should look at those first. And then these next ones are the medium priority. And so they should look at those next. So
Why don't we rate them from 1 to 10 then? Like, do this first and do that after, and
I feel like that we don't have, I don't completely disagree with that idea, but I feel like we also just have to get this report done and out. Like we could work this one around and around and around again. And I feel like let's just keep it a little bit simpler. And you're right. Let's just let council, we've made recommendations with what we suggest, and let them, they can prioritize them when they're working on that. Yeah, because I'm just conscious of partly of time and you know, this is I want to keep going with it. So if we're okay, we'll just leave it as is. And if anybody strongly objects to any of these priority things, we can talk about it, but I'll keep going. Oh yeah, these ones I think we don't have, it's just in here for information basically, because I think Ron did valuable research. I think it's good to know about,
Yeah.
but none of this changed, but it's just essentially no direct action on these recommendations. But I think it's important information to have in here.
yeah,
So-
good read.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
So, okay, so if everybody's pretty much okay with all of these, and then there's just, oh yeah, whether we want to address in these opportunities, you know what, honestly, I'm just thinking, let's just take it out. I don't think, let's just kind of keep this simple. No targets for, let's not refer to targets for ownership. Let's just work on these recommendations for diverse housing types. So if everybody's okay with this, I think it was just, I'll do a quick, like just edit of this where we've gone from the term adult oriented to low maintenance. I'll just go through and just check that this all makes sense if everyone's okay with that. And then other than that, we'll, I think, are we ready to pass this and get it going up to council? Can we do that? I don't know.
So Robyn, hi. I've created just a high level recommendation so that it just sort of touches on bullets of what's in the report, just in order for our tracking, and like it would be on the front page of the council agenda. You can do a skim of it. Can I show it to you?
Please do. Yeah, please.
Just see if you like this approach. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, but it seems to be starting. It just says staff has started screen sharing.
Okay.
But I'm not seeing anything yet.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
so
can
I'll
hear
just
you and
say-
see your face. We just
Okay.
can't see your screen.
So it says that the Housing Advisory Committee recommend that council consider implementing the recommendations included in the Bowen Island Housing Targets Report dated April 25th, 2022, including, and then I've just gone and taken, oh, there it is. Now can you see it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just got each sort of recommendation.
So, adopt identified. So one, adopt identified targets for diverse housing development using proposed formula based on the 20. Fritz has started screen sharing. Fritz,
Well, no,
you've taken over.
I couldn't get out of this, so.
Oh, you just pressed escape. So yeah, like Steph, can you take it back?
Yeah, I can
Fritz,
find
you are
it.
going to be going the penalty box.
Yeah,
Fritz, so if you can
Rules.
click the red button to stop sharing your screen, Fritz, at least.
I can't find it. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I got
Fritz,
it.
don't touch
Okay.
anything. I've taken it over.
No, I had a black page, so I had to find something. It was all
Okay.
black.
Okay. So, so do we need to list them out, or do we just say that they? I guess maybe.
I guess that's the
Michael-
question. I think I
Yeah.
thought, and maybe counselors can speak to it, that my job is just to make information accessible to people, make it easy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've got all this in the report with all this background and research and information, and this is kind of like a bullet points that are at a glance. That can appear on an agenda cover sheet that I can track, that and Hope can track on her end. But if it's too much, then that's fine too.
Cool.
I'd like to hear from Maureen, I think, and Michael on this one. What's useful for you?
I find it useful, and I think other councillors do as well, when there's some kind of summary.
Okay.
There are a couple of points here that might need to be tweaked, but
Yeah.
overall the approach makes sense to me.
Okay. So I'm gonna say if that, and Michael, if you're thumbs
Yeah,
up in agreement, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Steph, if we go through these one at a time, number one, adopt identified rental housing targets. So rental housing targets and take away for diverse housing, yeah, and development there. Using the proposed formula based on the 2021 census data. I think that's a fair summary.
Mhm.
And then support CEDC engagement with businesses regarding I think regarding cutout assessing approach to and just seasonal worker housing needs. Just regarding seasonal worker housing needs. Take out assessing there.
Well, I mean, we don't even need to have this in. I just was acknowledging that bullet in your report.
Yeah, that's what I think we should do. So that's our recommendation for that one. Low maintenance housing. So the next one, encourage creation of low maintenance housing.
Right. This targets for diverse housing types, ownership models.
Oh, I think we're taking that out. Yeah, we deleted that one. Let's get rid
Oh
of
yeah, I
that.
had a strike through on it. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. Encourage creative low maintenance housing, encourage creative family oriented housing. Okay, so hopefully, I don't know, Maureen, Michael, is that enough? And then you can delve into the report for the specifics.
I
Because
think
that's
so.
kind of the high level. Yeah. And then encourage universally accessible design in new builds. Yep, I think that, or incentivize. Yeah, I think that maybe saying, yeah, encourage / incentivize. And then
Come on. Okay.
connect for the research, you discovered the extent of potential rentable properties. That's probably fair. Available lands, consult with owners of unlicensed short-term rentals. Okay, identify the potential community lands for rezoning to encourage diverse housing types. Yeah, I think that's a good high-level summary. Does anybody have any comments or want to wordsmith that at all?
I like to incentivize more than encourage.
Me too.
Oh, well, I was going to say both. I was going to say encourage / incentivize.
No, I
Or
just
just keep it at incentivize.
encourage doesn't mean anything.
Okay, incentivize.
You know. if
Okay,
it
so
says-
should we change for 3 and 4? Should we change the word encourage then?
No, I like incentivize because encourage, when you read it, like design guidelines at times encourage something. What the hell does that mean? You know what I mean?
Okay, so I'm happy to find a different verb. So what do we think for numbers 3 and 4? Instead of encourage, what should the verb be?
Facilitate, cultivate. support.
Because what can
I
they
like-
do? I'm just trying to think, what can they do?
I'm
Yeah, sorry,
unclear
go
what's wrong. What's wrong with incentivized? Because incentivized means you have to do something to get it done.
Well, so for number 5, I'm totally happy incentivize universal accessible. That's a done deal. So number 3 and 4. So encourage. So right now it has encourage creation of family-oriented housing, encourage creation of low maintenance housing. Is encourage the correct verb? Should we be using a different verb? Like,
Yeah, but this is the council. I mean, council can actually
Yeah.
do things. They can
Yeah, so-
rezone. They have power, so they can actually incentivize. They don't have to encourage.
Enable.
You can encourage me.
Okay, enable.
Okay, that's better.
No, I'm okay with that too.
Because the incentivize in number 5 is specific, like setbacks and zoning amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of it can
I'm
be
not sure for
specific.
3 and 4.
Well, zoning is creating zoning is specific too. So I think for family-oriented housing, you can provide, then you can incentivize it too. You can allow more square footage for that. Like for instance, the bathroom. If you want them to put in a full bathroom, like the city of Vancouver does, instead of a powder room, you can give them the additional square footage. And I can tell you exactly how much it is. That is 15 square
Yeah,
feet.
that's number 5.
Yeah. Okay, good. So no, I'm happy with that. I think enable is a good verb for that one. And then you can delve into the report to see how that can be enabled. Okay,
Right.
So is everybody okay with this recommendation? Can we vote on it? Is there any other comments or wordsmithing? And hearing none. Okay, I'm going to move it to go. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ron. Yes, I feel it's appropriate that Ron and I move in second. That's good.
That's also
And
good.
everybody else in favor? I think I saw the hands. Everybody's up. Yep. So that recommendation is moved. Thank you, everybody. All right. Whew. Okay. So just a little bit of work to do on correcting that one section, and then we'll be done with that. Awesome. Okay. Great. I think that's we should be very pleased that that's when it came through. Okay, so I think we're over time officially. We were supposed to be finished earlier. So maybe we'll just briefly touch on next. So 4.2 cluster and duplex zoning. I think just simply that's kind of the next thing we're going to tackle. Who wants to be sort of involved in that? I've done research already. I have several examples. Ron, are you keen to do a bit more research or yeah? Okay, and Fritz. Okay, so Michael, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I do have to be out of the door by 11.
Okay.
Robyn.
Yeah. Okay. So you drop out when you need to. I'll just speed through these next 3 ones. So essentially for 4.2, Fritz and Ron and I will work on that offline. We'll try to come up with something for the committee to look at next month. And number 4.3, developer delegation. Do you want to say anything quickly, Michael, before you have to go? The delegations, do we want to continue inviting developers? Do we want to invite other different people? A member of the public, I think, emailed and suggested talking to some different people.
I'm going to say not at this stage, Robyn.
Okay, no comments on it, or you think we shouldn't be having?
I don't think I'm not at this stage prone to going into any more conversations. I wouldn't mind sometimes going back to the ones we've seen. We've been through. They're very good. I don't think at the moment we need to have any more at this stage. I think we're done with that.
Okay, what does everybody else think? Thanks, Michael. Maureen, did you have a comment, or Ron? Sorry, I didn't see if anybody had their hand up. No, Maureen?
I think at some point it would be useful to have somebody come from a community trust. There's interest in that, and there isn't a high degree of awareness, but that's not necessarily a developer visit.
Right.
And it could happen in a while.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'd agree with that. I think we've got the information from the local developers that we wanted, and I think it's been very useful. So I don't think if we do continue to have delegations, I don't think we need to limit it to developers at this stage. But I think I don't want to see it every meeting, because I do think it was great information, but it took up a lot of time at every meeting, and it really stretched our meeting times out. So I think we don't need it every meeting, but yeah, maybe we pick, every third meeting, or every, whatever, a couple of times a year, we choose a delegation. So I think community land trust speaker for the next one would be great, and that can be anytime in the coming months. There's no specific time pressure on that. And then maybe at a future meeting, we can discuss if there's anything else that comes up, or anything that's relevant to the work that we're doing at the time, to have somebody come and speak. So yeah, I'm okay to sort of take the pressure off that one, and we can just see how that goes. Any other thoughts on that one before I think we're pretty much Where there's other business, but I'm not sure if is there anything else people have, other business?
Yes, Robyn, just one thing. I would appreciate soon an update on the Birch project.
Oh, okay.
This is something that's been on our radar screen for a long time. And I'm just, frankly, I've rather lost track of where it is. Please excuse me, but so any light you can show when you're about to break ground or something thrilling. And so I think an update, generally speaking, on the Birch project would be helpful, not just for council, but just generally. It was a subject of a lot of great discussion earlier on and support. And where are we?
Okay, good. So why don't I'll put my Birch hat on and I'll write a letter as an update to mayor and council and formally submit that. Because I think, it's been on my to-do list for a while. So this will give me the deadline that I need. Okay.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else in new business from anybody? Nope. And there was several information items that came in. I haven't had a chance to look at them, but yeah, maybe we can look at them. So some of it's workforce housing. So maybe we can have a look at that and bring that into discussion next time. Maureen.
Just to note that Daniel's secondary suite report is on the agenda for tonight's council meeting.
Oh, great. Okay. Excellent. Thanks for noting that. Okay. Great. All right. If there's nothing else, we can adjourn. Sorry, slightly late. Anything else before we go? And next meeting. Oh, Ron, yeah, go ahead. Next meeting. Okay. Do we want to, I think it seems like Monday mornings work best. So do we want to do what, 1, 2, 3, 4? I think that's the holiday Monday, the 23rd. Do we want to do the 30th of May? Does that work? I think mainly it's, I feel like the councillors, Maureen and Michael, that's your schedule's probably the most prohibitive.
Well, it's funny. I'm just looking at regular council meet. Oh, of course, it gets moved to the Tuesday. Sorry. Okay.
So then you've got a couple of weeks break. It's that funny month where there's 2 weeks for you guys.
Yeah.
If you want it on a council day, it would be the 13th of May of June.
Right.
Or
13th of June.
I can't do that.
No.
I
Okay.
could work. Okay.
so maybe the 29th or 30th of May.
Does the 30th of May work for people?
Works for me.
Yep.
Mark? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Ron's good. I'm good. Fritz, are you good for the 30th of May?
It's a nice for Daniel because he's got that extra week to get your breath.
Okay. All right. Well, let's set it for 9:30 and then Fritz, you can let us know if there's a, is Fritz with us or is he, I think he's frozen. Okay. So we'll adjourn. We'll see you on May 30th. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everybody. Bye.
Good work.
Bye-bye.